Welcome to this presentation on the principal-agent problem. We will aim to explain in a succinct manner what the principal-agent problem is, its real-world applications, and solutions for firms to overcome this problem. Information exchange between principals and agents differ, as each party acts according to their own interests. To put this into a microeconomics perspective, we will specify how the interaction is observed where firms are the principals and their employees and third parties are classified as the agents. This diagram on the right illustrates principals shown as P and agents represented as A, and the interactions between each of these. Expanding from the first industrial revolution, specialization of industry has helped progress each individual's human capital. Firms as principals will hire labor from their agents, the employees, and third parties. Each agent's specific skill set can often allow for him or her to have an advantage over the firm in terms of knowledge exchange. The situation of information disparity between a firm and individual is known as asymmetric information. Here in the example on the right, Snoopy and Woodstock are conversing. However, Snoopy lacks understanding of Woodstock's intentions. Therefore, each are engaging in an information asymmetry. Beginning with an insight into information asymmetries, this video presentation will expand on the principal-agent problem through clear microeconomic examples.
Asymmetric information. As a broad definition, this is a situation in which one party in a transaction has more or superior information compared to another. This often happens in transactions where the seller knows more than the buyer, although the reverse can happen as well. The problem here is that this could be a harmful situation because one party can take advantage of the other party's lack of knowledge. So, how important are information asymmetries in business and economics? Well, there are three problems arising from asymmetric information: principal-agent problem, adverse selection, and moral hazard.
Adverse selection. It's a problem that arises when there is asymmetric information and it happens before a transaction is made. The agent that has more information is tempted to take advantage of that, looking for their own benefit.
For example, if a supplier of a product has better information about product quality than a buyer, then the supplier will pretend to show a low-quality product as a high-quality one in order to maximize their own profit. That is what happens in the second-hand cars market. The result is the oversupply of low-quality cars. The Nobel Prize George Akerlof studied this situation in 1970. Assume that some cars are lemons and some are high quality. Knowing exactly each quality has each car would be the ideal scenario, but there is often asymmetric information. Buyers cannot tell which cars are lemons, but of course, sellers know. As a consequence, a buyer knows that there is some probability that the car he buys will be a lemon and is willing to pay less than he would pay if he were certain that he was buying a high-quality car. This lower price for all used cars discourages sellers of high-quality cars. Finally, the market of lemons ends up offering low-quality cars. Thus, exchanges that could benefit both buyer and seller fail to take place and efficiency is lost. The same happens in the insurance market, as due to the presence of asymmetric information, the riskiest or the sickliest individuals end up desiring to sign a contract.
Moral hazard is defined as the behavior that takes advantage of asymmetric information after a transaction. In other words, moral hazard is a phenomenon where an individual's incentives change once a transaction is complete in a way that is inefficient for the overall buyer-seller system. Healthcare is an important area where moral hazard increases our costs. People are not held responsible for decisions that affect their health. If they take a risk, as for example, diabetes, lung cancer, heart attack, a part of the cost of that risk is borne by others. This decreases the incentive to avoid those risks and increase the total cost of medical care for everybody.
The principal agent problem in private enterprises. As you know, most large companies are controlled by managers, which in this context are the agents, and the stockholders are the principals, who usually own a small percentage of these companies. A principal-agent conflict arises when managers pursue their own interests rather than those of the stockholders, which is to maximize the value of the firm. On one hand, managers are more concerned with growth than with profit per se, because a rapid growth and larger market share provide more cash flow, which in turn allows managers to enjoy more perks. On the other hand, stockholders can complain when they feel that managers are behaving improperly, or they can monitor them. However, this can be costly, and as a result, stockholders can have little or no power over managers. In order to illustrate this, I'm going to provide a real-life example. CEO salaries. Washington Mutual is an upstart savings and loan company which saw an incredible growth throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, given the housing boom in this period. The bank, led by CEO Kerry Killinger, was aggressive in pursuing new mortgages. However, by 2007, the housing market collapsed and the home values fell. By 2008, Washington Mutual's assets had been sold to competitor JP Morgan Chase at the fire sale price of $1.9 billion in order to prevent what at the time would have been the largest bank failure in U.S. history. Less than 3 weeks before the sale, Washington Mutual's board of directors fired Killinger. Still, he received a severance package of over $15.3 million, and Killinger's successor, Alan Fishman, who led the bank for only 17 days, received $11.6 million in severance pay. Sadly, these two were not the only bankers or CEOs to receive large compensation packages, regardless of their performance. As for the managers in public organizations, they may also be interested in power and perks. However, they are also concerned about public interest. Because it is also costly to monitor the behavior of public managers, there are no guarantees that they will produce an effective output. However, even when public sector lacks some of the market forces that keep private managers in line, government agencies are effectively monitored. Suppose, for example, that a city transit agency has expanded bus service beyond the efficient level. Citizens can vote the transit manager out of office, or, if all else fails, use alternative transportation. In this case, Competition among agencies can be as effective as competition among private firms in constraining the behavior of managers.
How can principals tackle this problem? There are two solutions available. First, the principals must have some way of monitoring the performance of their agent. It can be done through two ways. Firstly, by holding annual general meeting. Annual general meeting is a forum to review the agent's achievement. The agents can be questioned by shareholders, and if their performance doesn't satisfy the principals, they can be dismissed. Secondly, by employing efficiency experts to examine the operation of the management. Another solution to address the principal-agent problem is through establishing a series of incentives. It has one objective: to ensure that agents will behave in the principal's best interest. For example, the managerial pay could be closely linked to business performance.
As well as adverse selection, moral hazard are similar in that both phenomena result from asymmetric information and both lead to market inefficiency. However, the distinction between them is, for one hand, adverse selection happens before a transaction is executed, whereas moral hazard doesn't manifest itself until after a transaction is already complete. As a related concept, adverse selection is sometimes referred to as a hidden information problem, whereas moral hazard is sometimes referred to as a hidden action problem.